Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. This might be a familiar face for you because Scott has joined me on the channel before, but it's been much too long. So I want to welcome Scott Cunningham back to the channel. He does crypto videos. He does, investment videos, basically how to make your life better from a financial perspective in many different ways on Library TV and on YouTube. So I'll leave his channel link down below. But Scott, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, for sure. So, I know I mentioned in the intro just a couple seconds ago that, you do a pretty wide variety of different types of content. Some of the content that I've really enjoyed watching from you is, how to take sort of the minimalist approach to crypto, right? Not starting with
Mhm.
the huge lump sum investment in a bunch of, blue chip coins, but how to grow your portfolio over time. So could you share with folks maybe your approach and how you've built up your portfolio without having to break the bank up front?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's investing, but my first sort of entry to crypto, I mean, I guess I threw like $5,000 in
Hmm.
in 2017, but I bought it at the peak because I didn't really know anything when I first started.
Yeah.
But then I found Steam It in January of 2018, and that kind of started my path to earning cryptocurrency.
Right.
And I thought that was a really powerful like thing to do when, a lot of people are very skeptical of like actually starting to invest and all this different stuff, KYC, having to actually give your ID to all these different things that they've never been exposed to before.
Hmm.
I felt like earning was the easy way to get people started. And if you start getting like free cryptocurrency, you'll find a way to like get everything else figured out because, free money is free money.
Hmm.
So I just kind of continued down that route and exploring all these different social media platforms, posting content, doing tutorials, doing all this different stuff. And over time, I earned a ton of crypto from all these different platforms. I mean, obviously
Hmm.
platforms that give you rewards, not just, people donating, because then you have to rely on specific people to actually
Yeah.
donate, but platforms that are giving you the rewards for the content that you create, and even just for interacting, viewing other content, curating content, lots of different things. But I found that this was like a very, very powerful way to get people started. And that's kind of how I've been building up a lot of my portfolio. I've
Hmm.
gotten a lot more serious since. And, I've been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and Ethereum every single time I get paid now because I'm just so keen on this technology and
Hmm.
crypto. But yeah, I think the best way to get started for most people with a very minimalist take is to just earn it for free, or try to get some of your wages coming in and converted into crypto, whether that's like Bitwage
Hmm.
or you're just actually doing it in dollar cost averaging in every time you get paid. Because I found that that was a very simple way for me to just get exposed to cryptocurrency without getting stressed out about the price and like
Yeah.
following all the news and just keeping up with everything all the time. Um, I do think people get lost in the weeds trying to like invest in altcoins, and just they're very new to investing, so everything just seems like everything's super hyped up and everyone's just jumping on everything. Now it's NFTs, and it was still kind of DeFi, and a lot of different things. People are just going crazy, and I've just tried to stick more to the traditional, oh well, I guess I say traditional, but I guess the more blue chip
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies, and I've just sort of, yeah, just played it very, very safe, very conservative. I did some altcoin investing, but it didn't work out the greatest for me, or at least or even if I did get gains, they weren't what I saw when I just put everything back into ETH and Bitcoin. Because I guess maybe I'm just not good at trading. But investing in Bitcoin and Ethereum has just done amazing for me, and it's such a simple way to get exposed to crypto.
Yeah, and I guess you're a sort of like a poster child for what you should have done after 2017, right?
Yeah.
It's so common to hear people that said I got into crypto in 2017 because that big wave of retail FOMO drew me in. I bought the top, and listen, this is kind of a two-sided coin, pun intended, because there were plenty of people who invested that didn't really have the money to invest in the first place, and they needed the money,
Mm,
so they had to come out of the market and cut their losses. So I get that. But I think the people that ended up winning out and people that are now in 2021 saying I'm in profit and I bought in 2017 at the top are the
yeah.
people who actually bought because they believed in what they were buying, And so they knew if I leave this here long term, this move is not going to look so bad, and found ways to do it in a responsible way. So I think that the moral of the story is, whether you earn it or you're dollar cost averaging or you're, investing a lump sum, like you said, you invested a lump sum, but obviously at the time you made a decision, I can afford this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the key lesson is if you invest in crypto, you can invest fractionally. You don't have to go totally crazy and buy a whole Bitcoin or buy, 32 ETH. You can buy in small
Yeah.
quantities.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful because, when my friends get into investing, like, or got into it in like over the last year, a lot of people are getting into investing with their stimulus checks and stuff. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
which is, a whole thing. But um, yeah, when people are getting into the game and they're starting to invest, they kind of just throw their money like all around, and and then something goes bad and they pull out and then they lose a ton of money. It's it's weird when people come to crypto having never invested in stocks, so they
Hmm.
really don't have any baseline at all. um but I think the powerful thing is, yeah, like you said, like if you hold, and obviously you're not investing in some like terrible random coin that you thought just had a cool name or something, and you hold, yeah, it's gonna work out. Like when I did originally buy, my dad also bought a bunch, and we both just decided to hold. And now here we are, 4 years later, and we're well into the profit. Like my dad's
Hmm.
more than double of what he put in originally. So, it's really just the long term game is Bitcoin. It's, you look at it, month to month or week to week, and it's just, it's very, very concerning sometimes. But you look
Yeah.
out, you zoom out, and like my buddy said recently, because it went up like 60K and then down 30K. Well, not sorry, I'm thinking of my own portfolio. It went up a lot and then dropped a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, after that, I was like, look, when I close at the end of the month, I'm, 30,000 above what I was last month. So you don't look at the small intervals. You have to kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture for cryptocurrency, because
Hmm.
otherwise you're going to be like my roommate who invests in crypto is just, he doesn't even check the price anymore, just
Hmm.
because he's just like, look, I'm invested for the long term. I don't want to be stressed out all the time, seeing it go up, go down, trying to buy in, sell out, all this crazy stuff. It's easier if you just think about it in a very long term perspective. Just put it, set it, and just let it go. And I think that's very, very important. But most people are not going to be that passive about their
Hmm.
investments, just because they're looking for like the next big thing. But the ironic thing that I found in my investing journey is, by trying to do it the right way, I'm getting the results almost of like that get rich quick mentality. And it's kind of ironic that when you play the game the right way, this like the proper way, and you're doing it for the long term, and you're not just trying to get those tiny short get rich quick kind of gains, yeah, you end up getting a lot bigger gains, because you're making the right moves, and it's going to take a lot longer, but it'll probably take less time than you originally set it out to take, right? Like I
Yeah.
wanted to, I originally, when I started doing all this, I was thinking like maybe I'll retire in 10 years, and it's looking a lot like 5 years or less than that now, because you just stick to the path, and it things fall into place. So yeah.
Yeah, I love your thought about like sticking to a path, sticking to a plan. Like that's the thing people ask me all the time, and I'm sure they ask you the same thing because you do the same, create content that's related to crypto. Say like how do you seal gains and like how do you make sure that you don't get in the situation like 2017 and again? And they say like the reason that I don't worry about this stuff is because I have a plan and I dollar cost average and I have fixed amounts that I purchase, and I also set myself percentage limits where I say if Bitcoin hits this price, I'm taking profits and I'm putting stable coins on the sideline for the inevitable next drop. And
Yeah.
like that simple system that I have both keeps me from emotionally trading and it keeps me on track in terms of growing my ultimate, like the actual number of the number in the portfolio grows because you're following that path and that
Yeah.
system.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. One of the things I stress the most is you shouldn't be buying something if you wouldn't buy on a dip,
Hmm.
because you don't have any conviction for that asset that you're investing in, right?
Hmm.
So like if I buy some random altcoin because someone says it's going to 10x, and then it starts to go down and I don't believe in it at all, someone just told me to buy it because it'll 10x, and I say and then I get out and I sell it, and then it does 10x, like a
Yeah.
week later or something, and it's just because I didn't have any conviction for that coin. So when everyone's jumping on the latest thing, it's like, yeah, you have no idea how that's going to play out. But when Bitcoin goes down in price and I say, oh, look, that's a price opportunity, so I buy it, and then that, that all adds up later on as the price appreciates. So yeah, you have to have the conviction and the belief in it, in whatever you're investing in, that you're actually going to want to buy it when it goes down, because you don't look at it as like a crash, you look at it as like a buying opportunity.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, like, I mean, I've looked at it like the worst thing that could happen is if I miss like a nice peak this year, I wait
Mhm.
4 more years and I wait for the next cycle, and I figure it out then, because that's literally what happened to me last time. I waited the 4 years, and here we are in the new cycle. I've got like exponentially more than I had then. And it's just being patient. And if you actually believe in what Bitcoin is going to do, then obviously you stay in through the lows as well. So
Yeah, yeah. I genuinely do believe that the narrative needs to shift, and it's starting to. I think there's actually quite a few people, even though, people you call like Bitcoin maximalists or whatever, the
yeah,
narrative is shifting to say like Bitcoin it is a long-term play. This is not a, you invest, you get really wealthy, you buy a Lambo, you buy a house, whatever, you have a lifetime worth of riches. It's not being pitched that way as much anymore, which I think is the biggest success of this, bull run, if you can call it that.
yeah,
And I've always treated it that way. Like it's different in Canada, but like here in the US, it's like you have different retirement options. This is very similar to what you have in Canada. They're just called different things.
yeah.
And I treat it the same way. It's like this is money I will not touch for most of my lifetime, but this is wealth that I will have for my kids and for the future.
Yeah, and like something that I've always said with Bitcoin is, I feel like the narrative is shifting away from, buy this and you'll get super rich, and it's becoming more of like, look at inflation.
Mhm.
Like, do you want your money to just like vanish? It's like,
Yeah.
I just look at Bitcoin as a way to not lose money now. And the bonus is I also make a ton of money. So
Yes.
yeah, I've really changed my perspective. And when I tell people who are getting into this and, they think they're going to get super rich, I say, look, this is more about not becoming poor than it is about becoming, exponentially wealthy. Um, and it's hard to illustrate, but I mean, when you've got like 30% of all the US money printed in the last year or whatever it is,
Hmm.
it's pretty easy to show people that, and they're like, okay, yeah, like there is a problem, and they don't
Yeah.
see or feel the need for a solution like Bitcoin until they truly understand the problem, which most people don't, because most people don't really look into the financial system very
Yeah.
much, so they don't have that knowledge. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a very flawed system, and Bitcoin is coming in to solve that. And the people who recognize that are going to be the people who are going to probably invest a lot more and probably do better. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of different use cases for crypto. So it really just depends
Hmm.
like what you're trying to do with the different things that you invest in. But I would always say, Bitcoin is a store of value. I invest in Ethereum for development, building like the new uh,
Utility.
yeah, exactly. And then I say like, Bitcoin Cash or Dash is kind of like to buy random things like day to day for low fees and stuff like that. So there's
Hmm.
all these different use cases for it. It just depends what people are trying to do. And the really good thing is that it's so liquid, because if we do see a stock market crash sometime soon because of all this inflation, the first thing that people are going to sell is their stocks. But you could spend your Bitcoin to buy things, so it's not as important to just like sell it off. And because it's got better scarcity and better store value, I'm hoping that more people buy into Bitcoin when they sell out of the stock market. So, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a wild time to be alive because I remember, when I was in high school or even kind of before that, I would talk about inflation, I talk about central banking, and it's like people often write off that conversation, a very
Mm,
fact-based conversation about how the system is composed and the truths about how things work together in the banking systems around the world. They often are discounted as like a conspiracy theory because I think
yeah.
they sound so dystopian when in fact it really has nothing to do with anything like that. It's not an anarchistic thing. It's just a simple, hey, I don't fundamentally think that this makes sense mathematically, right? Like
Yeah.
there's nothing controversial really about that from a like a an just an angry guy perspective. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
thanks for
I feel
bringing
like
attention to it.
the big challenge is trying to like explain that in a very digestible way
Hmm.
to people that you're talking to. I always like to refer to Alan Watts because he's an amazing philosopher, and he says money was only meant to be used to measure wealth.
Hmm.
And as soon as we got off the gold standard, that wasn't the case anymore, because now it's like, because it's a measurement, right? So if I pull out a measuring tape and then there's no inches on the measuring tape, that doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
that's what it is. And Bitcoin is just ensuring that that measuring tape is accurate. And it's as simple as that. And it's like, do you want an accurate money system or no? And it's like, yeah, probably you want an accurate one. And it's a simple, like, it really just comes down to that. It's very easy, but
Hmm.
like I said, I think people don't really care unless they see the problem of like what is actually going to affect me, because it's like, what, the banking system's been around before I was born, it's going to be here when I'm dead. Like,
Yeah,
what's the problem? And it's like, well, you need to see the problem in there before you actually start to care about the solution, and that's when people are really going to switch.
for sure. Yeah, and I think it's just natural. That's the way the human beings have always worked, right? It's what does this matter? What does this matter to me? Or what can I do about it? That's what drives people to understand something. And that's when like solutions come to the fore that
Hmm.
benefit everyone. I mean, that's what I love the most about this space is that despite the fact that in crypto generally there are so many, you know there are lots of bad actors that are just taking advantage of people, right? They're creating projects with no value, and
Yeah.
you could argue with the merits of whether that's legal or not legal to do, but it's not cool. But at the same time, the whole purpose of this technology in the first place is really a huge net positive because it's going to give people around the world, especially in places where there have been zero opportunities to advance from an economic perspective, the chance to actually do so, without having to have like this, very closed door infrastructure in place to do so.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, lately they've been kind of going after Elon about buying Bitcoin because they're saying it's bad for the environment.
Hmm.
And while obviously the environment is important, I think, a complete paradigm shift of financial technology is also pretty important. And bringing people out of poverty, preventing poverty in many cases. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different problems to tackle, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I think cryptocurrency provides a lot more solutions and benefit to the world than it'll ever take away.
Hmm.
And our money is so outdated, and we finally getting an upgrade to our financial system. It makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things around us that are upgrading almost like daily, weekly, monthly, and then you have like the education system is like hundreds of years old, out of date, money system hundreds of years old, out of date. it, Everything else is being upgraded constantly,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, oh, naturally we should be upgrading some of the most important things in our society as well. So yeah.
It makes perfect sense. And I guess to that end, in terms of an upgrade, here's an upgrade that everyone can do for themselves. It's something I've been following that you talk about all the time because I learned from it. You talk a lot about, you know, the two ways to grow your wealth, right? There's the increase your earning potential and increase the ways that you earn revenue, but also to
Mhm.
eliminate expense, right? And to, cut back in places where you might not need to spend. Can you give folks
Yeah.
that are watching, maybe that might be thinking after the beginning of a conversation, all right, I want a dollar cost average into Bitcoin. I want to do that, but I don't have room in my budget to put $50 in a month or $50 in a week. What would you tell them? There are four things or three things that you can do to make that $50 pop out of the budget.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's actually really, really important because a lot of people say, oh, investing is a rich man's game. It's like, well, how do you think they got rich? They
Yeah.
were poor and they started investing. So, you know, obviously the best time to invest is yesterday and the next best time to invest is today. So, yeah, I think first, I mean, kind of you got to internalize that. You got to realize that this is very important. Otherwise, you're not going to care enough to actually do it.
Hmm.
Um, but if it's really just like finding that extra little bit of money, there's a lot of different things that I do because I'm so serious about saving money and investing all of it. A perfect example is I cut my own hair. And while it's not like the most immaculate haircut, 50, you know, some people go to the barber every 2 weeks. Some people go every
Hmm.
week. They do beard and hair, maybe like $50 or something, a
Yeah.
crazy amount of money. So if you take $50 and that's one haircut, right? For some people potentially, and you do that twice a month, $100 a month, $1,200 a year, you know,
Yeah.
you buy Bitcoin with that, and then it goes up 100%, 200%. You're sitting with a couple $1,000s because you didn't get
Yeah.
haircuts. So, like, I think it's very, very impactful with what you can do, and it's the tiny things that all add up. So, for example, haircut is just one. I'm very extreme, like personally with
That's
frugality.
cool.
Like
Yeah.
I'll like, yeah, like I'll water down like my drinks, like not coffee or alcohol
Yeah.
because that's, you know, that's
That's a
terrible.
waste.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I water down like juice and stuff, and it's like eventually you don't even notice the difference, and it's not like taking away anything from your life, but now you've got twice as much for what you would buy if you
Hmm.
water it down half, and then you know, that small amount of money makes a difference, and it all adds
Yeah.
up, and then it put it into Bitcoin, or I invested in a stock, and then that pays me dividends for the rest of my life, and then I reinvest those dividends to buy more stocks and compound interest. um yeah, there's so many different things. It's hard to like nail a bunch of things down, but I mean, off the top of my head, like we don't buy, like I share all my groceries. I live with a bunch of roommates so that, you know, our costs are just as low as I could possibly get them.
Hmm.
um Budgeting is really big. I mean, you can't even know what to cut until you start actually tracking it.
Yeah.
I think one of the most significant changes in my financial journey was just budgeting, and just realizing how much I could save and then how much I
Hmm.
could get with Bitcoin or whatever. Because I would bet that most people are spending like more than double of what they think they're spending on things like eating out or Uber or, you know, whatever it happens to be. There's going to be lots of places where they're spending exponentially more than they thought they were, and
Hmm.
just realizing that is enough to get them to like pull back a bit. And then obviously if you actually budget and you stick to your budget, you're obviously going to save money, and you're going to have that extra money if you're strict with your budget to be able to invest. But I think one of the things that changed my perspective the most and had the most impact was when I started actually like spending crypto,
Hmm.
and I realized, wow, if I buy this coffee with my crypto, because I wanted to just get right into the crypto world where it's like I could earn crypto, spend it, live off of it. And I thought, okay, well, if I start actually buying stuff with crypto, I can like realize this lifestyle. So I
Hmm.
buy things, and then, you know, crypto goes up the next day, and then I say, like I lost extra money because I spent it.
Hmm.
So then I think, okay, naturally, then I'm incentivized to hold my crypto and not spend it. But if I have fiat currency, naturally, because it's inflating and it's going down in value, I want to spend it, because otherwise, if I keep it, it's going to be worth less.
Hmm.
So naturally, the way that people live normally, they're incentivized to consume all the time. But if you switch in, and even if you're just spending like 15-20% of your money in crypto, I mean, I would recommend that you hold your crypto, obviously, but this is just the way that I'm kind of going about it to test everything out and
Mm-hmm.
actually realize that lifestyle. But it has also made me, stop when I make a purchase and I think, do I really want to go through the extra effort it takes to buy this with cryptocurrency? And do I think the value might go up tomorrow? Maybe I don't need to buy this. And it
Yeah.
really changes your perspective there. And I mean, it's really fun to buy things with cryptocurrency. Like they're like,
It
oh, and
is.
how do you want to pay? And I'm like, Bitcoin. And they're like, what? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's a cool little novel thing to be able to do as well. So there's a whole wealth of benefits to using cryptocurrency. And I think naturally it kind of pushes you towards the, understanding of personal finance and all these different things. Like I explained, like you're incentivized to hold money. So it's like teaching you in a way and encouraging you to just be better with your personal finance. And I think even just by holding that and exposing yourself to that, it's extremely powerful. But yeah, I mean, even if you can't scrounge together $50, or most people will save and then they'll be like, I have 50 more bucks, let's buy 2 pizzas.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, that's the biggest issue is people who save and then they don't actually save. So you got to save and invest because otherwise, you're not actually doing anything. So a really powerful thing that I've led my financial journey by is if I can save 65% of my income for 10 years and I don't change my expenses, I can cover my expenses for the rest of my life, given they don't change. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously you have to take into account like if you move or whatever, inflation. But generally that is the way that I've gone about it. And I've managed to save more than 65% of my income for the last 2 years now. And while that is not what I would expect anyone to do, because that's
Yeah.
crazy, um, even if you could just save a small portion of your income, but it can't just be saved, it has to be invested.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's going to be affected by inflation. But then you could take that 65% for the 10 years and you could play with that. You could say, I'll save half of that. I'll save 37.5% for 20 years, and then you can retire, whatever it happens to be. I think it's just good to have that guide because then again, I'm ahead of schedule on this because I've been
Yes.
sticking to the proper things. So originally, it's good to have that guiding light, but don't have it as like a restriction, more of just like a guide. And naturally, it's helped me to get ahead of the schedule. So, extremely, extremely impactful. And I only really got into like getting serious about my finances like, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy how you can change things around. Like 2-3 years ago, I only had like $10,000 to my name. And now I mean, crypto kind of dipped down a little bit, but I'm
Yeah.
around like $180,000 from, the last 1.5 years, which is pretty substantial. Like, I mean, if
Yeah.
most people went from 5K to 180K, they would, like that's like dreams come true for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
um
That's discipline.
and I still consider myself an amateur too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think getting it into your head that you're like a genius trader or something is also really dangerous.
Totally.
Because all my friends who are new to the space are like, I'm making money on every trade and I'm so good. And then they're like, I know what the next trade is gonna be and when it's
Yeah.
gonna go up. And I'm like, man, like you're gonna lose money doing this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And I mean now the stocks are all kind of going down and now they're all like pull everything out. And it's like, that's not a safe way to invest. But like that's what people do when they get it and they're kind of just going after everything. And I would say the best thing to do is just stick to the boring stuff. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not as fun, but
Yeah.
it's fun after a while once you sort of see those milestones getting hit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you want to like knock out milestones so you have more motivation too, because like as I've built up my dividend income, I'm like, okay, now I can pay for my cell phone bill for the rest of my life, and now I can pay for my utilities for the rest of my life. And it's like that is so powerful that it's like, yeah, like I'm gonna keep investing. Like this is great. I can just cover all my expenses, and then just I could quit my job or do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's also very, very powerful. But I've been kind of like ranting on for a while, so
No,
throw
this
it
is
back to
it's
you.
super valuable. I mean, I think people think about investing like, oh, I need to make more money so that I can invest. Where the real value is in finding the money you already have to invest. Like the little
Yeah.
things for me that I notice is like, you know, I live in America. I love British soccer. I love English Premier League
Yeah.
soccer. So as a result, to watch my team play in various competitions, I have to have like every streaming service known to man, because each
Yeah.
individual tournament is on a different streaming service. So I know I have to spend this extra X amount of dollars per month that I normally wouldn't have to spend. So I needed to find a place to take, maybe to save a little bit of money, right? So it's like you go
Yeah.
renegotiate a deal that you have for another service, and
Yeah.
that's how you can kind of keep it under control. So the reason I brought that up is because your wealth of knowledge and the fact that you can speak about it for an extended period of time really just disproves that. You're a living example that it works. Even if you're 2 years into the journey, it makes a huge difference. And so for people that are watching, start thinking about this, and then 6 months to a year from now, you will very likely find that you can either you figure out what you did wrong, or you are in a much better place than you were before.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, the worst thing that can happen is at least how bad it is, or,
Mm-hmm.
like, and a lot of that, like you said, like switching around, kind of renegotiating, it's only possible if you're budgeting, because if you don't know where you could take from or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like there's no way to really determine that kind of thing. And if you really get into it, originally it seems really tedious,
Mm-hmm.
like budget everything, do it, make a spreadsheet, do all that stuff. It seems very tedious, very boring at first. But then when it's like, oh, sweet, like I can save money here and then I can get another Bitcoin or whatever. And then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a little more interesting, and it's more like it's more gratifying, because you're like, oh, wow, like I'm actually improving my life with every little change I make. So it's much more impactful and significant once you actually kind of see it play out. And yeah, it's really hard to convince people to actually start taking their finances seriously. But
Yeah,
the thing is, anytime someone does, they're always like, oh
they're
my God,
happy.
this is so amazing. The biggest issue that they have is not having done it earlier. Right.
Yes.
My roommate started investing in crypto last year, and he comes to me recently and he's like, why didn't you get me in this earlier? Like I could have so much more money. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I was telling you before, but you didn't do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just funny. It's like the biggest issue you'll have is wanting to have invested more earlier. Um, and, and that's only once you really get into it. But until then, it always just seems like this far off thing. And it's like, oh, budgeting is for accountants. And it's like, that's not something that like I have to worry about. And you really gotta get all that out of your head, because because we weren't really taught about personal finance, and maybe
Yes,
that's probably largely part of the
that's a
problem,
big
because
part.
yeah, we were never taught about it, so it doesn't seem like it should be a priority, because it's like, well, if I was never taught about it, clearly it's not that important, so why do I have to learn about it? It's like, well, it is affecting your life
Mm-hmm.
probably a lot more than most of the things you learned about. And that's why people should take it seriously. And I mean, I'll even say, like, I know accountants who aren't good with money. So
Yeah,
it's not like necessarily learning it in school is going to make you like good at
you have to commit
saving
to it.
money, or yeah, exactly, because they could still buy expensive cars, and they could still buy a
Mm-hmm.
Lambo and stuff too, right? So it still comes down to, like, what are you willing to sacrifice today to improve your life for the rest of your life? And I think that's a powerful way to look at it, because it's like, it's not just it's that one sacrifice, but then all of my future days are going to be a little bit more improved, because I'll have a little bit more money available, a little bit more financial security. So every time you make a sacrifice, you're just setting yourself up for benefit in the future. And the younger you start, naturally, the more impactful that's going to be. And I mean, when you have less responsibilities and things in your youth, you can take all these risks, and you can live really close to your means and just invest all of your money, and you don't need
Mm-hmm.
to worry too much about something happening where it would be like a big issue. But obviously, still have like an emergency fund, still have all the basics. I mean, a lot of people don't even have that, so that's a good place to start too. Just
Mm-hmm.
having the basics set up so that you have a financial cushion and you have that comfortability to be able to do different things. But yeah, I think just getting in started and in just investing any amount of money is really, really impactful to actually getting started on that journey. Because once you finally take those steps, then you can really start to to get things going. And I mean, even some of my friends who have been, you know, investing in random, crazy, silly stuff, they're still, for the most part, I'm pretty sure most of them are still in the green, because investing at all is probably better than not investing. Even if you make
Yeah.
mistakes, you ideally you would learn from those mistakes and then get better. And I
Mhm.
mean, that's what happened to me, right? I started off by buying the top, luckily did not sell, learned from that, and then researched
Here you
crypto for
are.
the last 4 years, and then here we are. So
Yeah.
it works out just to be patient and put your time into it. And yeah, just working to improve your life. There's so many different things that you can dedicate your time to, but finance is absolutely going to be one of the most beneficial things to dedicate your time to.
Yeah, big returns on that. You know, both, you know, for me, it's been the biggest thing has been like mental health wise, like taking the stress of like, if I make a mistake or if I can't make this amount of money in this span of time, I am totally screwed. Like that, taking that stress out of your life is just, it's a huge difference maker, I think, for many people, besides the other benefits. And so, you know, I think this video has been as good a case as any for anyone who isn't yet to go ahead and subscribe to Scott's channels, both on YouTube and on Library TV. I think, you know, it's been good because he gives a really good mix of different content related to finance, related to crypto, related to, you know, just the way that you handle money and you do things. So I really really appreciate you coming on the channel and talking about it with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me on. It's always good to, you know, share financial knowledge and tips and
Mhm.
advice and stuff with other people. Not that any of this is financial
Yeah.
advice. But yeah, no, it's always good to share with other people. And, you know, people don't get exposed to this stuff enough.
Hmm.
And it's so easy once you actually get going. And it's just it's going to improve your life so much. So everyone, do yourself a favor and just, you know, start saving today, whether or not you're buying Bitcoin or whatever. Just
Hmm.
find a little few more ways to save, put that into something, don't just hold on to it, invest it in something. And it's going to be good. But I mean, I can't promise anything, but you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, the normal disclosures apply, but I think it's
Yeah.
healthy and good for people to share and compare notes. And what's working for Scott might not work for you. What's working for me might not work for Scott. That's the way that this all works. But fundamentally, you know, just asking the right questions and thinking about your own situation, what things you can try. I think you really can't lose it. Just, you know, trying new things. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. But Scott, of course, you know, really appreciate it. Really appreciate the time, all the, you know, the awesome wisdom. And of course, we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have you on my show soon enough.
Beautiful. That sounds good. Looking forward to it. And folks, thanks so much for watching as always. And I'll catch you on the next one.